Hello, this is your Executive Director, Angelia. Continuing on Healing Families' Lives, Self-Esteem and Growth Skills for Teens, which is an audience participation program that we go out to schools, churches, organizations, and hold with teenagers. And last time we left off on talking about navigating issues of independence versus dependence, especially with your family. Because sometimes the parents don't want to let go. They didn't want to let you have a little taste of independence. So, there's some issues there. And there's some teens who aren't quite ready to become adults. And so they feel dependent and want to keep that role as a dependent and not go out into their own life, which is what they're supposed to do. So today we're going to start on developing satisfactory self-images. You need to develop a good self-image, because if you don't have one of those, you're not going to like yourself. Other people are going to be able to influence you. They're going to affect your self-esteem. So it's important. It's important to develop, a stable self-image of who you are and what you want, so that other people can't take that or damage that. A stable identity. Again, you need to know who you are, what you want. If you don't know, a good exercise is to go back and think about when you were a kid. What did you want to be? What did you want to do? Are any of those things something you'd still like to do? And develop a stable identity. In my old Living Your Own Life class, one of the things we did is create a me list. All the things you like, list them. All the things you don't like, list them. And then you start to get a feel for who you are. If that's something, a lot of us go out into the adult world and that gets passed by the wayside, and then, we have to come along and work with people later on and try and help them go back and find that. But it's easier if when you're a teenager, you can find that and then build on that. Build your future. Leaving home. For some kids, it's a no-brainer. They just can't wait to get out that door. For some kids, it's scary. They've had a very, supportive, stable home, or, a codependent home that they're scared to leave. And that causes problems. It causes them to not want to go out on their own, not to have a life of their own, not to, be in a relationship because they can't leave, the mother or the father. And that is not healthy. So what you want to do is, think about being an autonomous person. Think about, that at some point you're going to have to leave home, even if it's not till later on and your parents pass away. They're one day not going to be there. So even though that might be sad to think about, you need to think about your life and building your life. So, that's what you want to tell your, audience on this one. And like I said, we can have people come up and, express their opinions and get a group discussion going. And the counselor of the school or organization can have a handout that they're, further going on about these topics, because we do a outline and they can hand that out and discuss things later on. General challenges, and we all face challenges, don't we? Uneven psychosocial development. Now, as someone who's worked with a lot of survivors of abuse and assault, this is something I come across all the time. If you are being abused at home, you are traumatized. That's the facts. People can deny it, sugarcoat it, whatever they want to do, sweep it under the rug. Facts are, if you have been abused or assaulted in some kind of way, you have been traumatized. This creates uneven psychosocial development, because if your mind is not right, you're not relating to others right. You're not developing right. And when I say right, we fall into the averages. Remember, there's no such thing as normal. You have people to this side and that side of normal. There's no such thing. It's a law of averages. Most people fall into this grid. People who've been abused and assaulted are not in the law of average middle. So, your psychosocial development is naturally going to be affected. So that's something we can talk, with the teens about, how do you think your psychosocial development is going? And some might be honest, some might not care to speculate on that. But that is something that is a challenge for teenagers growing up. Social skills deficits. We all need social skills to navigate the world. If they were not taught in the home, they're not taught in schools anymore. That's gone the way of the dodo. So if they do not have proper social skills, they're going to have problems dealing with other people. They're going to be labeled as, aggressive, a jerk, whatever. But you need proper social skills to get along in society. That's what they call social skills. So you can get along in society. If you feel like your upbringing was lacking in those things, by all means, take a social skills class or training. It's not going to hurt you. But that is a challenge for teenagers who have come up in homes where there was no social skills training. And then later on, other people are saying, oh, wait a minute, really? And then other people are trying to step in and teach young people things, and they might not be so interested in listening because to them, this is the way they were brought up and this is the way they are, while the rest of us are kind of going, yeah, but. Immaturity. This is a challenge for teenagers going out to get a job, relating to older people, relating to peers. Trust me, I can point you out within 5 seconds of a conversation with a teenager whether they are immature or not. Now, we all like to act silly. We all like to act immature all the time. But if it's a pattern of immaturity, poor decision-making skills, poor social relationships, grandiose thinking, that's a problem. So that's something that, teenagers might want to brush up on and catch up on. And they can go to a counselor or a life coach or, a psychotherapist. Their counselor school is a start. And catch up. Because we can catch up. That's a good thing about being a human. Animals, if they're messed up, they kind of are messed up until you work with them for a long, long time. But as humans, we can go back, revisit those spots that were damaged, and heal them and move forward. Lack of understanding. I have come across some teenagers who just really, their understanding level is so low, I would put them close to toddler level. And I just always find that shocking. It's always shocking to me. It's like, how do you not understand this? How do you not get this? But the truth is, they were usually brought up in an environment where they were basically neglected. They were never taught anything. And so they don't have reasoning skills because they've never had to think anything out. Everything was done for them, or they were just told, go to the kitchen, grab this or whatever. And they never learned any logical thinking skills, so they have low understanding level. And even if you present to them something as logically and as reasonably as you can, they still don't get it. So that is a challenge for some teenagers. Confusion regarding changes occurring during teen development. I know of a woman who got married at the age of 16 and came running home back in tears to her mother saying, do you know what he wanted to do to me? Because Sexual relations was never explained to her. She didn't understand. So, I mean, it ended up being a funny story in the family later on. But, I mean, imagine that she had no idea and then suddenly he wants to do this, you know. So, you know, if the parents don't talk about sex and sexual changes that are happening in the teenager's body, then that can be a challenge for them. They don't understand what's going on. You know, girls, a lot of times, I'm getting fat. You know, boys are like, why is my voice doing this? You know, so that can be a challenge for some teenagers. Symptoms and behaviors characteristic of mental problems. Unfortunately, a lot of our teenagers did not grow up in the best homes. They may have been abused, neglected, molested, sexually assaulted, and they are showing evidences of mental illness. Now, counselors at school are good. They can recommend you to a counselor or a therapist outside of school. However, a lot of people don't believe in labeling teenagers as mentally ill. They want to say it's a phase, especially if parents are good about this. It's a phase they're going through. They'll grow out of it. You know, I was in this phase. I grew out of it. But that's not always the case. And it's been proven early intervention can stop mental problems that become much bigger later on. So a little counseling and psychotherapy now, a little med management now, can stop the full-blown blow up that they're going to have, you know, in their midlife crisis. Possible comorbidity. If you see a child and they have a bad attitude, chances are one of the parents has a bad attitude. If you're a child who has a deficit in common sense thinking, chances are they have a parent that has a deficit in common sense thinking. Again, with loving and being compassionate versus, you know, kids who are hateful and being a jerk to other people. Chances are in their role models somewhere, there's one like that. So again, that could be a challenge for some teenagers, you know, is that they are, you know, with the person who is leading them on to this. Also, comorbidity sometimes is used in the counseling drug world, you know, interchangeable with dual diagnosis, but it's not really that. So, you know, but in case anyone says it to you that way, you know, some people do. Vulnerability for entry into juvenile legal system. If the child's having problems and they end up in the juvenile system, then that record doesn't always follow them. It's usually expunged. However, if the high school reports this to the college or if they're in a job program, you know, this can follow them. So that's something they can face if, you know, they're being put into that system. That can follow them, even though that record is expunged as far as the police record goes. It can still follow them via schools and career programs. Vulnerability to uneven and at times pseudo-mature sexual activity. Let's face it, teenagers are going to have sex. That's a fact of life. That's a fact of life in one way or another, even if they're not going for all out sexual intercourse. There are also, you know, other ways that they have sex. Excuse me, especially children who've been molested or sexually assaulted, they may engage in pseudo-mature. They may act like they know what they're doing. They want to do this, but really they're acting out sexually, trying to have a positive sexual outcome to make up for the bad outcome that they had. So this is something that some teenagers face. And this is why we have, you know, 12, 13-year-olds having sex and getting pregnant. Behavioral challenges. because how we behave is what others see and think of us. It tells them, in their opinion, who we are. And even though, you may say, well, I don't care about their opinion is what guides their behavior towards you and what they report about you to others. So it can affect you in negative ways. It's immature to think it can't. Difficulty with self-regulation. Some people, they can't, regulate themselves. They're impulsive. They have no schedules. They have no, ways of doing things. They're sloppy, and this can be a challenge because that can spill over into adult life, which you're going to have to be scheduled and disciplined. Impulse control. Right? That's a big one I see a lot. Everything you think is not a good thing. Everything you decide to do is not something you should do. Teenagers need to learn impulse control, for social reasons, to get along with other people, and, to have money, because if you buy everything that you see that you like, you're quickly going to run through your money, and you won't be able to save for that house, car, vacation, whatever you want later on in life. So you have to be able to control your impulses. Management of anger. I saw a kid lose it and attack a referee at a soccer game one time, and this little 8-year-old kid, he's like beating the crap out of this referee. So you have to teach kids to manage their anger. We all get angry. Heck yeah, we do. But as a mature person, you're supposed to be able to rein the anger in and think about, okay, this is a problem. How can we solve this problem? Because conflict is a problem. And usually there needs to be a compromise, So when there's anger involved, especially teenagers, they're very emotional because they're, full of hormones, and they need to learn that they have to control this anger, that in society, it is not socially acceptable to be blowing up on people like a volcano. Now, some people do it. Some, executives and men in high places, and even some women, do this and think that it works for them. But really, it does not work for them because they lose more people, than they keep. And they might think they're keeping good people, but that's not necessarily true, because someone with a little self-respect is going to probably be a better contributor to the team than someone who's cowed and is just a yes man. So anger management is something teens need to learn. Low self-esteem. Who of us has not had low self-esteem at one point or another? I see the girls and boys, they did it when I was in school and they're still doing it now. Oh, I hate my hair. I wish my nose was smaller. I wish my nose was different. My lips are too small. My lips are too big. My butt is too big. My boobs are too small or too big, or my waist is too thick. My thighs are too big. On and on and on. So, self-esteem is important. And you need to tell the teen that they're good at something. Recognize everything they're good at. If you think they look good that day, or they look good, that jacket looks good on you. You should wear that more. Help them with their self-esteem, because the world is a cruel place and it's hard enough, because people tear you down. We've all had frenemies who act like they're our friends, but, they say all these nasty little things and do all these nasty little things. And I was up in my 20s and still accepting that in my life. And then I realized, why? Why am I accepting this in my life? They're not contributing anything into my life, and actually they're doing detrimental things in my life. So, I cut that out. That's not allowed in my life anymore. But teenagers need to learn that. Discouragement and depression. We all get discouraged at one time or another. Life is not going to work out 100% perfect how you want it to all the time. It's just not. That's the way it is. And we all get discouraged. And you need to tell the teens that's okay. It's okay if you get discouraged. Just pick yourself up and Try again. Keep walking, or as my kids used to say, because of Dory, just keep swimming, you know. But depression. Now, depression is different from discouragement. Depression can be, them laying in the bed all the time, not wanting to do anything. It can lead to cutting themselves. It can lead to suicide. So if you suspect that a teenager has depression, that needs to be intervened on. You need to say, hey, you have depression. We need to go talk to the doctor. There can be med management, because when you treat it, then you can manage better. If you don't treat it, you're not going to be able to manage pretty much at all. Excuse me. Possible emotional suppression. If they've been abused and they have emotions regarding that, and who wouldn't have emotions regarding that? But they're pretending like they're fine. The world's okay. Everything's great. That's emotional suppression. Because clearly, everything was not fine. They were abused. Everything is not great. They are putting on this magical world and pretending it's all good in my hood. And it is far from that. So, be on the lookout for that. That's emotional suppression. Over control, where they're over controlling their emotions, where, they might as well be, Mr. Spock or Sheldon from Big Bang, where emotions are not allowed to get out of control. They will logic, reason, do whatever it takes to not let their emotions get out of control. If you notice that, too much reining in, also a problem. They might want to go talk to somebody. Internalization. This is where all the things going on around them, they internalize. Now, all children do this. All children. That's why little kids think it's their fault when parents get divorced. All children internalize things going on around them. And that's a shame, but that's a fact. So if you notice a lot of teenage angst, they think things going on in the family or with their friends or at school or whatever is their fault. They may say it's my fault. And it's not your fault. It has nothing to do with you. Again, that's something you might want to get them to talk to a counselor about, because that can lead to worse feelings later on. Potential explosiveness. Again, if they have a temper and they go off like a rocket sometimes and go at people and, just, that's a problem. That's a problem. That says they are not in emotional control. They probably have emotional problems, which usually means psychological problems. So it's good for them to also go and talk to somebody about this. Inappropriate risk-taking. Risk-taking is part of life. You have good risks, you have bad risks. Good risk might be going for that scholarship or going for that job or buying that new car, Bad risks are having unprotected sex, hanging out in a gang, going somewhere with someone you shouldn't do because it's a dangerous situation. Those are bad risks. So, if you notice them taking inappropriate or bad risks, that's also something you want to talk to them about, and they might want to go talk to a counselor about. Mental challenges. We're all not created equal. We all have different mentalities. Difficulty with taking in and or processing new information. I have worked with kids like this who they really just have a problem getting it. And you have to talk to them 3, 4 more times to get them to just understand another person's point of view or your point of view. They are just in their own world. And if they are not mentally able to come out of that world, because like I said, we're all differently able, then you're going to have a hard time getting through to them. And you can do your best with them, but you might want to send them to a specialist who specializes in people who, are mentally disabled. Problematic or inconsistent judgment. This is a teen thing to begin with. They're full of emotions, they're full of hormones, their judgment is problematic. They often get themselves into trouble, as we all know. Who did not get into trouble when they were a teenager? I've heard of a few people, but most of us, weren't that lucky. So, the judgment is not what it should be. But if they're always causing themselves problems, as some people are, and their judgment is inconsistent, like sometimes they make a good choice, but then other times maybe not so much, that's part of feeling out, who they are. But if you notice consistent patterns of bad judgment, you need to step in. It's your duty to step in and say, hey, I'm seeing this. This is not good decision making. This is a pattern, and we need to talk about this. And again, they can go to a counselor and talk about this, because sometimes they don't want to talk to parents or anyone else, and they might actually talk to a counselor who's a stranger to them and outside of their realm of society at that point, and they're more willing to disclose. Limited problem-solving ability. There are people, problems come along, it destroys them. It knocks them to the floor. They are not resilient. They are not able to bounce back and get up and go on. A problem just floors them. This, it's hard, and I'll say this, and most people say this, it is the hardest to work with group is people with anxiety, because their anxiety level can get so high. They cannot understand you. They cannot hear you. They cannot see past their anxiety, so that it's hard to coach or counsel them. So when I see people whose anxiety levels, I recommend you need to be on medication. And if they don't want to be, that's on them. But you cannot break through anxiety without medication, without proper training. There are different, there's tapping, there's NLP, but, that is my least favorite group of people to work with, because, it's hard to get them to learn how to solve problems if all they're doing is thinking about the problem, and you cannot get them to here and now in front of them to work this through. So again, if that is a thing, they should probably go talk to somebody. Specific challenges. Limited capacity for effective self-expression. Some people, they just they can't come up with the words. People, especially on the Asperger's autism spectrum, they cannot come up with the words, or they do not wish to express the words, how to express themselves. And this is a problem. And again, if you know that this person falls in that category, you can prompt them, and try to get them to open up. And of course, you can send them to a counselor that specializes in people with, problems like this, so they can get help. Limited understanding of their condition or disorder. There are people, who have a limited understanding of their condition or disorder because they're mentally disabled or ill to the point where they cannot comprehend what is going on with them. There are teenagers like this. I met a guy in school who just had some serious problems, was physically abusing himself for the amusement of others. And needless to say, he ended up in a mental institution. So, sometimes that happens. Okay, now, when we would go through this, the speaker would close the discussion, send everybody back to their seat and thank everyone for participating. And the counselors at the school, the church, wherever this is being presented, we want to have follow-up discussions and handouts on what we learned through this program. I am the executive director of Healing Families Lives Incorporated. We are healing the lives of families affected by domestic abuse. We provide psychological first aid, counseling referrals for abusers, support groups, ministerial services, classes, life coaching, keynote speakers, mentoring, and more. Our contact info is the phone number is 502-363-3427. The quicker way to get a hold of us is email, and that is healingfamilieslives, all one word, at gmail.com. And of course, you can see our Facebook page. So I hope you have enjoyed the Healing Families Lives, Self-Esteem and Growth Skills for Teens, Audience Participation Program run through. And like I say, that's all for now. Until next time.